Hi everyone, I'm Crow77 and today we're going to take another look at defense and talk about Kabe. So first of all, what is Kabe? Now you might have heard the term Suji and that sort of thing if you're new to the game, but Kabe is a little bit less common to talk about. Simply put, Kabe is the Japanese term for wall. So as you might expect, in Mahjong, a tile is Kabe when you can see all 4 copies of it. Now this can include all sorts of tiles, so you have to make sure to count tiles you have in your hand, tiles in the discards, tiles that have been called by other people, even things like the door indicator. You always want to make sure any showing tile can be counted for a Kabe. Now a tile behind a Kabe tends to make them safer, but not always. We'll talk about some of the nuance there a little bit later here. Now Kabe is stronger than Suji as an indicator of safety. So if all else is equal, you have an 8 mon that's Suji and an 8 pin that's behind a Kabe, you're going to want to discard that 8 pin. We'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. Now make sure that you're aware of Kabe tiles as they come out into the pond. The reason for this is if you get a late reach or something, someone discards maybe tile 13 or 14 and they reach, you don't have time to go back and count every single tile in the pool to find Kabes. You have to be very aware of it as the tiles are coming out. So that'll be an important thing to develop just to make sure you don't get in time trouble on online Mahjong. Now, like I said, in general, Kabe is going to make tiles safer. So in the general case, if we see things like the 4 2 pins, the 1 pin is going to be safer. If we see 4 3 pins, it makes both the 1 and the 2 safer. If we see all 4 4 pins, the 2 and the 3 are going to be a little bit safer, but not the 1. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second here. And lastly, if we see all 4 5 pin, the 3 and the 7 are going to be safer. So just one real quick disclaimer before we go on. I hate teaching about the 5 Kabe. The just risk of it is way higher than all of the other Kabes, really. So always be careful when you're using information about this Kabe. Now bad weights like penchans and kanchans are going to be remarkably common weights for a Riichi. There's reasons they didn't open their hand and that sort of thing, and it could very easily be because of bad weights that are going to mean that this 5-pin Kabe is useless. So in general, if we have additional tiles behind the Kabe, it's going to make the weight more safe. So that is, if we have Kabes on both the 9-pin and the 5-pin, the 7-pin is going to be considerably safer than if we only had the 5-pin Kabe. The reason for that is we can't be dealing into a 9-8 pin anymore, because all 9s are used. So always be aware of that sort of thing and keep an eye out for Kabes that work together like that. Now with all that said, Kabe can make tiles more dangerous. So you always have to consider what tiles are not available in the pool. So for example, let's say a player reaches after the last 4-pin comes out, but we don't see many 1 pins, 2 pins, or 3 pins. They could easily have a 1-2 or 1-3 in their hand, waiting on that 2 or 3 that we thought was going to be safer because of the 4-pin Kabe. In addition, we also have to watch out for the 1 pin. I mentioned the 4-pin doesn't make it safer, and that's because of things like the 2-3 pin set. If a player doesn't have a chance to get a 4, but they have the 2-3, then there's no reason why they wouldn't be waiting on the 1 pin. And it's more likely because we can see 4 of the tiles that would otherwise complete that 2-3 pin set. So always look for tiles behind a Kabe when they are suspiciously absent. So one very, very clear example of this. Let's say the door is 1 pin and we don't see any of them, but 5 pin is Kabe. Proceed with extreme caution at that point, because if you don't see any of the 1 pins, then chances are they're in someone's hand, right? So at that point, they could easily be waiting on a Tonki weight, just waiting on their pair, or a Shabo weight, having 2 in their hand already. So you deal the 2nd or the 3rd, and all of a sudden you're dealing into a very big hand. So to sum it all up, Kabe is a very, very strong tool in your defense arsenal. It's stronger than Suji when it's available, even if it is a little bit less common. Now, with that said, Kabe is still not going to be 100% certain to be safe, except in some very rare situations. So you always have to pay attention to the interaction between what tiles are visible with a Kabe, and it is very, very important to do so. Any sort of awareness that you have of the discards is going to make you a better player in the long run. Well, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you need anything or have any questions, feel free to reach out for me. Thanks for watching.